Welcome to a new video. It's a new year. We're talking this year specifically to organizations that have teams who manage the audience and the marketing budget for your brand, your organization, your cause, and they're looking to use podcasting, YouTube, long-form on-demand media to further that mission. The reason we're shifting a little bit this year is because if you've heard me say many times, if you've been watching these videos, there is so much more power in the current media landscape for individual creators to partner with brands and organizations that have bigger audiences and platforms and marketing budgets and kind of make magic together. So for a long time, I've talked straight to content creators because that's been my background, but I'm working more and more with brands and organizations and institutions and nonprofits who have existing audiences and platforms. And I want to help you and your teams really understand the power of these mediums that do require the personalities and the talent of individual content creators and how to make those worlds work for you to, get your message out and influence the audience that you have to do the thing you want them to do. So today's video, I'm kind of shifting and speaking directly to the marketing teams who work in these organizations. You may be wondering, how do I even start to pitch this to my leadership team or my boss if I see the value of investing in a podcast or YouTube show or long form content, not just really short social first content? How do I start to explain this in the terms of return on investment and how it's going to move the KPIs forward for our brand goals this year? So I'm just going to give you a few really simple ones that you can start with. And if you've already tried them, you can leave me a note and I'll go deeper in the next video and in a little more complex. But if you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out how do I translate the value of these mediums and working with content creators in long form content to my boss or my senior leadership team, here's where I would start. Be really educated about what the big goals of either your company or your clients are this year. Truly frame any project you want to do that involves the long form content in the same language and end goal as the existing goals in your organization. Because if you are a brand that sells a product and you're trying to get more customers or grow revenue or build brand awareness, you want to speak to your senior leadership team exactly about how this show is going to do that. Let's say you're a nonprofit or maybe a university or something that doesn't have a physical product, but you're wanting to help your senior leadership team understand how the podcast, the YouTube show, the long form content that you collaborate with content creators will either maybe, increase thought leadership status or help build awareness in the demographics you're trying to reach, the audience that you're trying to reach to build awareness of your cause or your organization. If that's, maybe there's a specific number on that, we're trying to increase that by 25% or something. I want you to language your entire case for this kind of content in those same return on investments, right? In those same goals. Because one of the toughest things for people who make decisions to say yes to about long form content is it can feel too nebulous to them. They understand on a big picture how having a podcast or a YouTube show or working in long form media will be good, but it's hard for them to say yes when it's a bigger budget item or maybe a little bit riskier from a brand standpoint. What if we look dumb? What if it doesn't do well? What if we work with a content creator who turns out to not be great? There's a little bit more risk there than doing a short brand approved social media video. And so I want you to speak directly to how this project actually moves the big goal forward in tangible ways. So you know what that could be better than I do. You know your team, you know what matters to them, you know what your goals are, but just starting there and making sure that your pitch for this project, this media project, is directly tied, very clear, simple words. Do not need to make this complicated. The number one piece of feedback I give when someone sends me a podcast pitch or a proposal and they're hey, can you review this and let me know how to make it better, whether they're pitching to a client or a boss or, trying to get funding maybe, is I'll read through it and then I'll say, use half as many words. make this language so much simpler, be so much more direct in how this media project actually achieves the outcome you're looking for. It is really tempting sometimes, especially if you're inside of a big organization, to use really big, professional words and kind of speak corporate language to make a show seem legitimate. But that's actually usually, I would say 99% of the time, it backfires, because it makes the show seem like up in the air, kind of in the world of like big words and not reality. And since shows kind of feel like a nebulous thing until they get made and people can see reactions and feedback and numbers and things like that, you want to tie your pitch to very real outcomes and numbers and as solid of, goals as you can tie it to. So even if you're estimating, you can say, we want this show to increase blah, blah, blah audience size by X%, or we want to convert this many people, to our email list through the show, or we want to get this many signups for our program. Obviously, we want to increase revenue by X%. And then you can go from there and outline, and this is why we're proposing this topic for a pilot season tied to this revenue goal or whatever. Does that make sense? It's so valuable to connect how the show will lead to the actual real outcomes that everybody wants for the year. And because big media projects like podcasts and YouTube channels are long games, as you've heard me say many times, you do kind of want to look at those annual goals or maybe the 3 to 5 year goals. If you just look at quarterly goals, it's really not going to do you any favors, because just getting the show made will probably take at least 2 to 3 quarters. And then those goals can change so fast. So I would recommend tying your show to annual goals or multi-year goals. And that will literally set you up if you're just trying to get a yes to make a pilot episode or to, get proposals from production partners. It can get you, a yes to the next step. Okay, so if that makes sense, I'm going to give a second suggestion as well to kind of help you get started to get your boss or your senior leadership team on board. Understanding what they value the most in terms of status is really, really helpful, because media projects are typically associated with status, right? Even if there is revenue or, audience growth goals there, really underlying media projects are status symbols. And even if that's a subconscious thing, some senior leadership teams will be able to articulate that, and some will just say we want this, it's good for the brand. And what they mean is it elevates our status. And so it's really helpful for you to understand and know or ask around and be hey, what kind of status does this leadership team or this boss really care about? Because for some people it's about personal brand, we want to make our leadership team, the people who are on it, look good. We need to elevate that. For other people it's we need to look really relatable to our target audience. Maybe it's a relatability status, they're the cool in friend, they get us, we listen to them. It could also be within the peer group of your industry. We need the status that we're the good guys or the trusted experts or the smart ones or the ones who get it right in our industry. So maybe this project is about making your peers think something about you status wise. So that's just to kind of get you started thinking. You probably already know the answer, or you can ask around if you don't know the answer. Ask your teammates and be what is the status symbol that matters the most to the people who need to make the decision on this? Because media projects do create status. And that will help you understand the risks that your senior leadership team may perceive in this project if it doesn't create the status they want. So those are 2 places to start. 1, tie your show idea to the actual annual goals that your team has and how it's going to directly make those happen or contribute. And 2, understand what kind of status your senior leadership team cares the most about and how this show will help build that. And already, if you can answer those 2 questions and just put them down in simple words, remember, short, direct, to the point, you're going to be on your way to getting maybe the first step or the first yes to exploring how this show can get made. I hope that's helpful. Leave me a comment if you want more details on that or you want me to go deeper. Subscribe to the channel because I'm going to bring you a couple videos every month this year specifically trained at teams or working in larger orgs that are trying to use long form media to achieve your goals. And I want to be able to help. So I'll see you next time.